Today on the channel, unfortunately, the tariffs are here. What does that mean for us, and where do we go from here?
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another deep dive discussion video. Dare I say, business hat video is today's video. We're talking tariffs, but not really. I guess we are, but we aren't. We're not deep diving and talking the tariffs we've talked about in the toy news every single Saturday on the channel. The last 2 months or so, what is time? Check out those videos. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you've missed them. But we know what tariffs are. We knew they were coming, but now they're coming in our face, and nobody likes that. Well, maybe some people do, but the tariffs are basically here. We've already seen companies take advantage of the tariffs, even though it is a bit shady if you ask me, and we'll talk about that here in this video. But this video is going to be more about what is the future look like. Let's get the crystal ball out. What do we see the next couple of months, maybe the next year or so? And let's talk a little bit about that. And I'd love to have your guys, and especially you gals, inputs in the comment. You guys can tell me what you're planning on doing, and I'm going to run down a little bit of a list of a few different things. I got some notes here, some bullet points we'll talk through on all this stuff. So we're going to put the business hat, we're going to dive through this. Now, obviously, I'm going to say it right here. This isn't political. I'm not sitting here talking politics and stuff, whether who's right or wrong. Obviously, I think most sane people see both sides of it some way. Nobody likes tariffs either way. There's a lot going on. It's not going to be political. I'm just more talking about action figure stuff. But I'm sure it'll get political in the comments. And I guess, hey, have at it if you want to do that. But I don't want to get into all the political stuff because that does bore me at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people, as I've said on the channel before, live and die by the politics all the time. And you just got to enjoy life a little bit. There's way too much stuff going on that, unfortunately, you can't control. As much as I like to control these tariffs, Todd McFarlane, I don't really have a say in any of this. I have zero say. And guess what? Most of you guys and gals watching, probably 100% of you, have real no say in this. So we just got to have to deal with the fallout, whether it's good or bad on anything outside even tariffs. It is what it is. But I want to dive through and keep it political-less. Is that a word? Political-less? Keep the politics out of it, basically, long story short. But what happens next with this whole fallout? Well, what do we always say here on the channel? What does an old Jesse Ventura tell us? What does a young Jesse Ventura tell us? He says, Kyle, follow the money. And at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. You follow the money in anything in life. It sucks that everything is about money at the end of the day, but it is. It is. All businesses, everything, money makes the world goes round. It makes decisions happen across the board. And at the end of the day, I've said it since the get-go with these tariffs, Todd McFarlane, that there's too much money on the line all over. It's not just action figures, it's everything. There's too much money on the line. Cooler heads will eventually prevail. Maybe it'll go back to how it was. Maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll go to zero tariffs on toys again. Something's going to change. I don't know if that's going to be later today. It could be 2 weeks from now. It could be 6 months from now, or maybe a year. And I can't imagine this going much farther. I have to think by summertime, we're going to have a resolution going on here, but that's going to have its own challenges, which we're going to discuss later in this video as well. But the thing you always got to remember in anything you do at the end of the day, follow the money. Follow the money. It's as simple as that, of course. But I don't want to make this political once again, but it's very hard to do. I understand that. But tariffs already are taking effect. We've seen that. We've talked about retailers already taking it. It's already affecting our wallets and our pre-orders in some instances. It's a wild thing. It's a tough spot for some of these companies, toy companies and retailers. It's a tough spot. What do you do? Where do you move? How do you do it? Because a lot of these companies can't take these extra tariff charges. They're not going to make profit. They're not going to be able to pay their employees. They'll go out of business, whatever it may be. So it is a fine line, and it's a hard one to understand fully. Part of me says, hey, I pre-ordered something. To me, a pre-order is a contract. I've signed an agreement to purchase something from you. And now all of a sudden, you're not doing it. And I know there's upside down stuff all over the world. There's all kinds of tariffs. There's all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, we agreed. I agreed on this as a customer. And they always say the customer's always right, right? We've agreed to something. We've signed a contract that I've said this $24.99 G.I. Joe figure is coming home between fall of 2025 to me at this price point. And now all of a sudden, hey, there's a tariff surcharge going on. It's a dicey thing, and I see both sides of it once again, and I think that's most things. It is gray. It's not black and white. Most things in the world, unfortunately, as much as we'd like it to be. But some of these companies here, like Hasbro, we'll pick on Hasbro first. Apparently, you go to Big Bad Toy Store on the front, says there's price increases coming May 9th. And there's been rumors on a lot of Hasbro price increases for quite some time. And we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I think the tariffs plus price increases are going to murky the water. And it's a great way for these retailers to take price, mix it in with the tariffs. Does it come back down? We'll discuss it here. But Hasbro, May 9th, apparently lock in your pre-orders, lock everything in, because there's not going to be a surcharge, whatever. There's not going to be a price increase, more like it, on Marvel stuff, Hasbro, Star Wars, all this stuff Hasbro does. So apparently that's the case, May 9th. So do with that what you want. If you have some things you're eyeing, get your pre-order in, I guess, apparently. That's what Big Bad Toy Store is saying, but I've heard rumors throughout that Hasbro's looking at taking a price increase. We just got an email from Mondo the other day. Obviously, Mondo, a ton of that stuff coming from China, the big deluxe figures we love so much. I just got Scaremare just recently here. Check out that video if you missed it. They are not going to take a price increase, a tariff increase, whatever you want to call it, however you want to murky the waters with it. Everything that you pre-ordered, I pre-ordered the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Buzz Off. I mean, I can't even list how many things I have on pre-order from Mondo. Apparently, everything's locked in. Everything's going to ship as is. However, coming very shortly, everything after that is going to be subject to some of these charges. Now, to me, that's the fairest way to do things. I signed the contract. We agreed it. I've already paid my money for these things. You can't come back to me and say, well, I'm going to need an extra $25 for that Buzz Off, Kyle. And if I say no, are you going to refund it all? I guess they would have to, or they go to small claims court, whatever it may be. But I do think the Mondo message was correct right there. Now we get over to Super 7. And Saturday, right after I filmed the toy news, Super 7 sent out an email to everybody. And it said, hey, we found some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures, Super 7 Ultimates, that were thought lost or whatever. Basically, they had some new old stock ready to go. And if you needed some, act fast. And I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. I got that Leo. I got that Rat King. I never picked up that Foot Soldier. Somehow I missed out on it, slipped by me, whatever. And so I said, oh, I'm going to go over there and pick that up. Well, then I saw it was, I think, $59.99. And then there was like an 8% tariff surcharge there, knowing these came to Super 7 last year. So there should be no tariff increase. Then on top of that, shipping. And unfortunately, the Kyle P discount code saves you 0%, unfortunately. It's nice to do, though, if you're buying from Super 7. But there was no savings there. And I looked at it, I was like, this tariff fee, how could this be? And then I looked a little closer, and then I looked at my email. They announced they're putting a tariff fee into everything. So I don't know if they're trying to take old stock, raise the price on that to help offset some of their pricing on stuff that's coming over. I don't know, but it's not a good business model going away that way. And I think a lot of people are pretty upset about Super 7 about this. I've seen this ever since then, but it struck me very strange on Saturday. I said, why is there a tariff fee when this was found in their warehouse? They've had it. There shouldn't be an extra fee to this one. So as you can imagine, I did not pick that one up. However, in a plot twist, check out the weekly purchases this week. I did pick up that Foot Soldier at Jay's Toys and Games, and I saved myself 15%. So shout out to them. We'll talk about them in this video as well. But that's Super 7. Major Bendies, Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, our old pal Knick, of course. As of right now, they said no increases. They're going to eat the cost on this stuff. Obviously not the best thing to do, of course. You can't do that permanently, but I think they're saying, hey, hopefully things get figured out in the next few months. We don't want to upset the apple cart. We're a new startup growing business. I think that is a great thing they're doing here for their customers. Now, different than Mondo, I could see them maybe coming back and saying, okay, guys, starting with the June pre-orders, if nothing's been settled, we're going to go this direction. There's going to be an increase. I could see that happening for sure, but kudos to them for making a statement and not taking us and charging us extra stuff. So we'll see that. Now, Zombie Sailor, we've talked about that a lot in the toy news. The Pinnacle line, it went up for pre-order, then he took it down. Now he's waiting to see, and we were told, hey, it's coming at the end of the year. Is it going to be coming at the end of the year? Do they have our money just sitting on it? Is he going to reopen the Pinnacle orders, and then people will be able to jump in right then at the same cost? A lot of uncertainty there and not a lot of transparency there. My hope is, fingers crossed, and nobody knows as of right now, I locked in the Pinnacle. I hope I'm saving extra money over when they reopen the Pinnacle, because if they open it up $5, $10 a figure higher, I will be very happy about that, because, okay, at least I saved some money on the get-go. Everybody else that got late to the party or whatever, they're going to have to pay a little bit more. That's only fair. I'm not going to be happy if they open up the pre-orders again in June. It's the same price as it was back in February. How is it fair they sat on my money? That stuff puts a sour taste in my mouth, and I don't want anything sour in my mouth, that's for sure. No, I don't, Todd, I don't. So we'll see where that whole zombie thing goes. But I don't know about the deadlines. There's a lot of unanswered questions right here. And that's kind of the tail of this whole video, too. There's so many unanswered questions. Things could really change on a dime. But we need more transparency. Transparency for these companies. Constant learning, constant improvement. You got to have that stuff out there for your customers all the time. Look at this Power Town debacle. I don't even want to mention them then. I did a long form video about them. Just shenanigans afloat. They should have paid. They should have got these figures to us long ago. Now they're sitting at a dock somewhere and they're hoping for the best, hoping these things ship sooner. I don't know. That's Power Town. I'm not even going to it. Check out that video if you missed it. KWK, one of the best retro companies going today. They did announce a price increase there. Understandable. The thing I think about KWK is they've shown good quality and they're still extremely cheap in relative to everybody else in the market. So yes, they had to take a price increase. That's unfortunate. Off the big news, they were going to be $14.99, but they're still feel cheaper. The value still really feels there for me. Now, that's me personally. You guys have to make that decision on your own. Mattel has came, said, hey, we're doing price increases. We're going to transition everything out of China as much as we can. In the next 2 years, we're going to have 90% of our stuff outside of China. And that's one thing, too, is we got to remember the tariffs are going on. China's the big one. Vietnam, there's still tariffs. They're just not as big as China's. So you're going to see if this goes on, whatever happens, a lot of people moving out, of course, to the Indias, and the Vietnams over the years. I think we're going to see more of that to come in the future. We'll just see how that ends up going up. But we're still going to see some price increases from a lot of this Mattel stuff. And Mattel was rumored to be taking price increases already. Well, now it's a way to murky the waters, take those increases, take the tariffs together, mold it together, tell that story, and oh, here's the price increase. So we'll see where that goes. Todd McFarlane, apparently price increases coming. McFarlane's been pretty wacky ever since the DC news. We're not sure if up is down anymore. We've seen the DC collector's editions. They're $29.99 still. They have taken away the card stands. They've taken away the detail on the stands. They've dumbed those down a little bit with not decreasing price. So we'll see where that all ends up going with old Todd McFarlane. But it's going to be an interesting road for him, even if there was no tariffs with the loss of the DC license, what he brings in, what he makes things up with, because you got to make up those sales somewhere. So it'll be interesting to see where Todd and the crew ends up going. But very murky. Some companies doing it totally wrong. Some companies doing it right. And that's what you're going to see throughout. But a lot of these companies making decisions, and sometimes feels like they're making decisions without knowing what's exactly going on. I mean, you get the Big Bad Toy Store, I guess jumping. So these are the companies, the Hasbro's, Mattels, everybody went through. These are the companies that make our action figures here. But now we got retailers involved. So that's always the dynamic there, because the customers, let's say Hasbro, they're going to sell something to Entertainment Earth. Well, Entertainment Earth takes a price based on Hasbro. So it's all conjoined together. But we just talked about the manufacturers of the toys. Now we're going to talk about some of the companies that sell us the toys. Now, obviously, it goes both ways sometimes. But Entertainment Earth, a big one. Entertainment Earth making some huge moves lately. They've taken price increases on stuff, even though the tariffs haven't hit them. A lot of the stuff's been in their warehouse. I would say 99% of it for sure. They're taking those price increases. They got rid of their discount code. Of course, we all remember code Kyle saves 10%. May 1st, they got rid of all those codes across the board. Now there's an affiliate link. So link in the description down below. Use my code to support the channel, I guess is what we would say. But no more 10% savings for you and me if we buy something. That is very unfortunate. Then a price increase on all of that. Got to think they're going to lose some business there. I just have to think that's going to be the case. We'll see where that goes. But once again, a company taking an increase when there hasn't been a real increase to them as of yet. So we'll see what happens there. Big Bad Toy Store, a very similar situation. There's a price increase once again, but they haven't taken on price increases from the tariffs as of yet. So it just feels really strange, feels like a punch in the gut. It feels like a way to mask and get more money into them, or they're hoping to get a little bit of extra money to support stuff that might be coming in the future. But if it doesn't come in the future, they're still going to pocket that money. You know, they're not going to give it back to the consumer. No way. Ringside Collectibles has not said a word. Obviously, they're primarily Mattel. Now, Jazzwares, of course, I believe is still in China. And, I've heard a lot of these companies are laying weight with their product. They're not shipping it out. We'll talk more about that as well. But Ringside has not said a word on anything. So we'll just see. I guess we'll have to wait and see. No news is good news, maybe. And I know a lot of people complain about Ringside's pricing. I understand. Use code Kyle, save 10%, but a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like Ringside charging this much. Well, first, you don't have to pay it, of course, as we know. Any of these companies, you don't have to pay it. You vote with your wallet at the end of the day. But they do fly the stuff in, so there's extra expense. You're first to the market, there's extra expense. But the thing that always crazy for Ringside is people complain about the figures when they first come out, but months later, or especially their big sales, you can get figures for $2, $5.99, $6.99. Nobody ever says, wow, kudos to Ringside for giving these figures away so cheap. Nobody ever gives the good news. They always go off the bad news. So you got to remember that. Ringside gets a very bad rap on the pricing because it's supply and demand. They're going to get it where they can. But if you wait and you have some patience, you can get them way under retail, cheaper than Walmart, Target, etc. So pro tip out there. Jay's Toys and Games. Hopefully you guys signed up to their email newsletter. Great supporters of the channel right here. Use discount code Kyle. Save yourself 15% on all in-stock items. They're not raising anything. Now, they have stopped some of the pre-orders as things are trying to get figured out. But Jay's has a very unique system, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But kudos to them not taking price increases like the Entertainment Earths and Big Bads, who they have the same product going on. Why is Jay's not taking a price increase, but they are? You got to kind of look through that, and you got to support some of these smaller companies as they're doing really good things, as we've seen with Jay's here. I buy a lot of stuff at Jay's. That discount code cannot be beat. You get a company like Wrestling Collector Shop. Rumors are going bankrupt. I guess they filed for bankruptcy. We saw the major bendies, big rubber guys pulled from them. They're going in-house again. So that's one of those companies. Some of these companies are going to fall by the wayside, be it the ones that manufacture the product or the retailers that sell it. Not everything will survive if this goes on a long time. A lot of our smaller companies are going to be in trouble. And Wrestling Collector Shop seems to be one that was already in trouble before. This could be the final nail in their coffin. We'll see what ends up happening there. But one thing that is interesting with these companies I just talked about, a lot of them, majority of them, they rely on new merchandise to move the business forward. That's where Jay's Toys and Games and some others out there have a unique way to win in this, because they are so key. Their key to their business is diversification. Jay's Toys and Games, they sell CDs, vinyls, video games, comics, cards, retro action figures. They have a lot of stuff under their umbrella. So maybe they don't get new stuff, but guess what? They have a lot of vintage stuff they can start putting on their website. They have a lot of old stock. They have other things they can start selling. Nerdzoic is a company out there. Good, big nerdy over there. Friend of the channel, of course. He's diversifying his portfolio, getting cards and getting books and things like that. So that's going to be a key to some of these as well. Diversify your portfolio a little bit. Toy sales are down. Make it up somewhere else. Obviously easier said than done, but it is a possibility out there for some of these companies. Entertainment Earth is a big one about that. They sell backpacks. They sell a lot of different stuff over there. Now, of course, some of that stuff is made in China, but not all of it. So diversification is key to the portfolio. And that's where a company like Jay's Toys and Games, not just because they're a sponsor of the channel, they've got a leg up on some others because they aren't going to be totally out of business, where a Big Bad Toy Store relies so heavily on new figures. They're more in trouble than some unless they start selling retro figures and things like that. So we'll see where that ends up going. But the next few months or so, a lot of product is just kind of in limbo. These companies, the Jazzwares, the Mattels of the world, the NECAs of the world, they're laying in wait. They're like, hey, don't ship that container. Let's say a cargo container, just easy number. Let's say it's $10,000, whatever it ends up being. Hey, hold that. I don't want to ship it because normally it's $5,000, but with the tariffs, it's going to cost me $10,000 with the extra. Just hold back and let's wait. Maybe things will get settled out. So there is a lot of these companies right now. The last few things are going to come the next 2 weeks or so from China. And after that, it's a holding pattern. It's a hold. I'm waiting to see what happens. I'm Mattel. If we can hold everything, because just imagine if it was your money, you were dealing it out. And just imagine that if I ship it today, it costs me $100,000. But maybe tomorrow this all gets worked out and it's only $40,000 or whatever the number may be. Obviously, we'd all like to save that money. And there's going to be a time, there's going to be a day where Mattel or whoever, oh, I wish I would have shipped that out tomorrow instead of today. I could have saved $100,000 to the bottom line. It's going to happen to some of these companies, but a lot of these companies hold the product. Hold the product. That's what's going on. And that's very dangerous because there's a ripple effect with that. So these cargo ships, the captains, of course, they got their captain hat on, I'm sure. These guys don't have a job. They're normally shipping stuff back and forth. They're sitting there at the port just waiting to say go. On the flip end, when they get to the port of California or port of San Diego, whatever port they're going to, there's miles of truckers ready to take these wares wherever they need to go, to the Walmart warehouse, wherever they need to go. Guess what? These truckers don't have anything to do now. And trucking is an interesting world in itself, of course. There's, books on trucking. Trucking's a wild thing. We've seen truckers. We all see truckers on the road. But a lot of these truckers, it's already hard to find truckers right now. There's a trucker shortage across probably the world, but the United States for sure. Now you're going to see some of these truckers like, there's nothing coming in. There's nothing for me to do. I'm going to go find a job somewhere else. And it was already hard to get truck drivers. Now things get fixed. You're going to have a truck driver shortage. That's dangerous. That's super dangerous because the truckers make the world go around. They deliver your food, your toys, everything under the sun via trucks to different distribution centers and vice versa. It's a huge spider web. And without it, man, oh man, things fall apart very, very quick. So some of these truckers, they're going to find new jobs. So when things get fixed, guess what? There's not going to be enough truckers to get all this stuff. Now, we're going to see shelves go empty. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to be empty by July, and then there'll be nothing for Christmas. Well, maybe for Christmas, but I think there's enough merchandise in Walmart back rooms, Target back rooms, and then you got Walmart and Target distribution centers. I think there's enough stuff there that could just keep on shipping. You got to think, just because it's shipped from the port, there's like 2 weeks to get to the distribution. It's 2 weeks inside the distribution center getting mixed around. Obviously, I'm generalizing. Then it's got to go to all the stores. There's still going to be product coming for a while. There'll be restocks. Let's think of the Mattel Legend series at Target. Stock number 1 came through. I'm sure there's stock number 2 already ready to go. That'll come behind there. So I think we'll see some stuff, but I also think we could see some NOS stock, some new old stock. We see that every once in a while around the holiday from WWE, Mattel. We see it from McFarlane, where all of a sudden these old figures that have been off the shelf for 6 months or so, the page punchers, whatever it may be, all of a sudden they come back to the stores in a hurry around the holidays to have some extra product. I am pretty sure the Walmarts and the Targets of the world, they have some of that new old stock. And then Todd McFarlane, for instance, probably has a warehouse somewhere with old stock where they're not going to have to dive into these tariff prices. They can give it to Walmart and Target like normal. That'll keep stuff on the shelf. So I do think we'll see some new old stock from some of these companies as well start going to the market as things start dwindling down, if we get that far once again. So be on the lookout for that. We could see some new old stock stuff. But some of these companies, like I said, will fold. It could be the wrestling collector shops. Who knows? Maybe the Entertainment Earths of the world. I don't think so, but anything is possible. And I do think some of these smaller toy companies, they might take a break. Kind of like Zombie Sailor and Heels and Faces. Taking a break, waiting, laying in the weeds on the Pinnacle line, maybe, for instance. But we could see some of these companies just lie in the weeds because if they have to pay all these tariff prices, they could go out of business because they couldn't sustain with the supply, demand, and already small runs as is. So that'll be interesting to see who totally folds, who gets out of the games, and then who says, hey, we're taking a break, we'll be back in the future. Maybe they have old stock to sell as well. Maybe they'll do some of that in the meantime. We'll see what happens there. But once everything gets worked out, let's say, June 15th, everything gets settled, everything gets worked out, whatever that may be, whatever that does look like. Whether it's good or bad for the United States, whether it's good or bad for China, let's say things get worked out. Well, guess what? We're going to have dock delays. Remember COVID, all the craziness of COVID? It could be even worse than that. We're going to have dock delays because everybody's going to want to ship their stuff already. Mattel says, I've been holding stuff for 2 months. Let's get that on the boat. Well, Hasbro's saying the same thing. All these other companies, and once again, not just toys, across the board, they want to get stuff out. There's only so many ships. There's only so many truckers now. And guess what? If this takes a long time, those people are going to find other jobs. You're already going to have a shortage there where it was already short. And now you're going to have tons of merchandise they're wanting to ship out with nobody to do it. So going to be wild. Something ships in June. Maybe it's in the warehouse in 2 months. It could be 6 months. So we're going to have some serious delays. Almost makes me wonder, like San Diego Comic-Con, we're going to see stuff at San Diego Comic-Con that possibly might not come out for 2 years, 3 years. Who knows? It's just wild, but those dock delays are going to be really crazy. And then just the extra expense of all of it, because guess what? There's all this stuff coming. Now, if you're a boat captain or a trucker, you might be able to get a premium to ship all this stuff. Well, guess what? They're just not going to pay those guys. They're going to pass that on to the consumer. So the tariff pricing, the tariff increase is over. Well, guess what? Now Hasbro, and just picking on Hasbro, it could be any of them, they're going to say, well, guess what, guys? The tariffs are gone. That's great and all, but now it's so costly to ship stuff. It's so costly. We're going to have to keep this price increase. We're going to have to keep it where it is. Just tons of unanswered questions, and we're not going to know where we get there, but you're fooling yourself if you think the pricing will ever come back down. If they take a price increase because of all this stuff, the pricing's not going back down. It's just not going to happen. It just never does. Now, there's very few things in the world where price comes down. Gas, it fluctuates all the time, of course. Now, I can tell you, as bread Jesus, of course, bread prices have come down. I have dropped bread prices for my area. Many other areas across the United States have dropped pricing. Now, the caveat to that is the manufacturer has dropped pricing, but is the retailer passing that on to the consumer? That's the thing people forget about, is a lot of times some of these companies, they give cheaper cost of them, but the retailer says, I'm just going to eat that and I'm going to take the extra money. I'm not going to pass that savings to the consumer. So that's always a dodgy thing. And it's something that really grinds my gears and gets my blood pressure up. So that's a story for another day. Maybe save that for the podcast. Of course, Kyle Peterson Show every single Tuesday. But as I said, so many unanswered questions. And one is, Kyle, you're a rambling madman. It kind of feels like the ramblings of Kyle, but a lot of thinking out loud right here as we go through this. But a ton of unanswered questions that aren't going to be clear until the dust totally settles. But I don't think the pricing will ever come back to us. I just don't see that happening in toys. They're going to use the excuse, well, the tariffs and all the extra expense we incurred, we got to make that up. And now it's more costly to get the stuff here. And then if there is tariffs going forward, well, we got to put that in there. And then they got to take a little bit more on top of that. They're always rounding up. They're never rounded down. So remember that as well. So now the question is, and that's kind of where we lead to the end of this video here, is the tariffs happen. All this stuff is going down. It's ugly, like I laid out here. What do we do in the meantime as collectors, as action figure fans? And once again, you got to take that step back. Action figures are the least of the worries. It's a fun hobby on the side. We shouldn't be stressing about it. We should be enjoying it. We should stress more about, electricity and water and food and things like that. That's a little bit more important, obviously, than our action figures. We're passionate about it. We're passionate about it, though. But what are our options come tariff time here? So now the first one is very easy, and it could happen to you. You guys let me know in the comments. Maybe you just call it a day. You stop collecting entirely. We're just done. I'm not collecting anymore. The hobby isn't as fun as it used to be because of all this stuff, all the craziness, all these companies taking price increases, all these retailers taking price increases. Unfair, maybe in your opinion. Whatever your opinion is, you're welcome to it, of course. Maybe I'm just calling it quits and I stop collecting. And that's not great for any of the retailers or the manufacturing companies, because you lose a customer a loaf at a time, you get them back a slice at a time. We know how that goes. But people may stop collecting. Or maybe not as extreme as that. Maybe you say, guess what? I'm going to take a break. It'll be great to take a break from collecting in the summer. I'll enjoy the stuff I have. Some of those finances I had, maybe I'm going to put that towards a family trip. Maybe I'm going to, put a down payment on a new car or whatever I've been wanting to do. Whatever it may be, maybe that is. Maybe you need a little break. And that's dangerous, though, because maybe you take that break and you don't come back on the back end. It could be a dangerous situation, but maybe you take a break. And then maybe you save money. Maybe you just say, hey, this is going to settle out in the long run. I'm just going to say I spend $200 a month on toys, whatever it may be. And I'm just going to put that in a piggy bank for a rainy day. When things get back in business, I'll have all this money ready to go back in collecting. Maybe you're going to do that as well. I think a lot of people are going to do this, which is interesting. And I'm not opposed to this. Collecting vintage, or possibly plugging some holes in your collection you missed out on. Maybe you're a He-Man collector and you missed out on the first wave of the cartoon collection. Well, nothing new coming in. I'm going to go back and get those figures. Maybe you wanted to collect the old school Masters of the Universe figures from the 80s. You know what? Now there's nothing new coming out. I'm going to go back and pick some of those up. Me personally, that's kind of where I'm at. Now, I've talked to them numerous times on the channel. I'm not going back and digging into all the stuff from my childhood. As much as I love all my G.I. Joes, Transformers, He-Man, some even the old Star Wars stuff I had as a kid, I'm just not going back. I'm looking forward. I'm more interested in new stuff than the old stuff. I feel like I've been there before. I feel like I don't need that. However, there's always some pieces I want to go back and get. Maybe I go back and I get that USA prototype Ultimate Warrior I'm missing. That's the only one. Maybe I just pool up some money. I pick that one up along the way. Maybe I grab some figures I missed out on. I talked about those CMLL wrestling figures by the OSFTM company. Perfect example. Maybe I go purchase those while in the downtime. That might be something to do. So that's kind of where my head is currently, because I do thrive on the new stuff, but now it gives me a chance to divert some of those funds to some of the old stuff I wanted. So maybe that's the way I go. That's the angle. I'm looking at that, and of course, saving some money is what I'm probably going to end up doing most likely, because there's only so much vintage stuff I want at the end of the day. So that's one of those things. So you got to kind of vote with your wallet, decide what you want to do and what kind of collector you want to be. Do you want to go all in? I mean, there's some people that might say, you know what, I don't care about these tariff prices. I'm going to pay $34 for a Marvel Legend. I don't know. It's up to you. It's your prerogative. It's your money at the end of the day. And what does Jesse Ventura say? He says follow the money. So we got that going on. But there is going to be a very interesting thing when the dust does settle. It's going to be really interesting to look at these companies to see where the prices line in at. Dare I say, I know there's going to be a price increase at the end of this. There's no way around it. There's been rumors forever. Marvel Legends want to be $29.99. It could be past that. We'll see what happens. But I just don't think any of that stuff will come back. I think the glory days of collecting, and I guess that's all relative too. That could be a year ago. That could be 10 years ago. That could be 30 years ago, depending who you are. But I guess I want to say saving money, the glory days of collecting, we're going to pay more money. Long story short, we're going to pay more money when the dust settles than we're paying right now. And that is unfortunate because this should be a fun hobby. It shouldn't be crazy expensive. I guess it depends what you make of it, obviously, like anything else. But that is a little bit disappointing. And I think that'll make myself and many of you out there say, you know, do I want to collect Marvel Legends anymore? Do I want to pay $30? Do I want to pay $6 or more per figure? You know, maybe I'm good with the Wolverines I have. Maybe I don't need 50 different versions of Wolverine. You're going to have to ask that question. You can only look yourself in the mirror and ask that one, as we do know. But to me, personally, it's a wait and see approach. But I'd be interested to hear in the comments what your plan is. I think most people got to be a wait and see approach. But I'd be interested if anybody out there is like, you know what, I'm done with the hobby. Maybe I'll just admire from afar. Or if you're going to go full bore all in, you're going to save money. I'd be interested to see what you do. I'm more likely to get some vintage pieces and just kind of lay in the sand and see where all things net out. And I think we're all hoping for the same thing at the end of the day. How can we get a deal? Because we got to get a deal out there. And I think that's what all of us want. We want to be able to pay less money for our figures because it affects the bottom line of your family, your finances, and so forth. So there is a lot to digest here. I know I rambled around a little bit all over the place, but I had some bullet points I wanted to cover. But more of a discussion, more of a chat, a fireside chat, just you and me chatting it out in our fabulous Western wear. I'm sure you're all wearing Western wear as well as we're doing this. But an interesting time, one of the most interesting times, and it's crazy the last 5 years, 10 years, what is time once again? You get COVID, you get this tariff thing, crazy things that affect the hobby that we love. And it feels crazy that those things affect this, but they do. And it's not just this, it's everything else under the sun and anything that's distributed across the world, I guess, at this point here. So going to be very interested to keep an eye on. Obviously, we'll talk about it in the toy news every single week, give updates where we can, see who will rise, see who will fall, like at Transformers, the movie with Optimus and Megatron. Very similar situation there. We just hope it's not Megatron winning this time. We want Optimus to rise, and he did, of course, as we do know. But once again, let me know in the comments your plot for the future. What are you planning to do? Let me know. Of course, hopefully you subscribe to the channel and my other YouTube channel. Like this video while you're at it, of course. You love the ramblings of the Madman or Diary of a Madman. You're exactly right, Todd McFarlane. Shout out to Ozzy, of course. Check out the Patreon, YouTube channel memberships for more content. Your best way to support the channel. Check out the Kyle Peterson Show every single Tuesday on YouTube. Video cast there, but wherever audio platforms are found as well. Got a contest going on. Check out the latest episode. You can win a free book. Of course, my book, The Complete Guide to the ECW Original San Francisco Toy Makers, available from me or, of course, on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, softcover and hardcover edition available. Like I said, check out my new podcast, the latest one this week, for your chance to win a couple of copies of the book. And we're also giving away on the Patreon as well. Check it out if you have not. Sir Paul64 on the X, _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and TheKylePetersonShow at gmail.com. So for the future, tariffs, distribution, and all the uncertainty, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.
Well, are we gonna dance or are we gonna play?
We're going to the end of the line.